All right, welcome back to another piece of content. This is a Warrior for Christ podcast, and I'm going to start things off by saying um, I'm going to exclude three type of people from this discussion. That's going to be the military veterans, the disabled, the elderly, and the needy. Okay, those three different type of people. I'm not going to be talking about them in this video when it pertains to the SNAP crisis happening, the government shutdown taking place. They ain't got nothing to do with what I'm about to talk about because they're not going to be included. I believe those type of people that I listed off, the military veterans that fell on hard times, the elderly, the sick, the disabled, right? Disabled from all age groups, not just, they don't got to be old, right? They can be 40, 30, in their 30s, 40s, 20s, whatever. They're disabled. I believe they should get assistance from the government. They should receive SNAP benefits. They should receive all types of assistance, right? Governmental programs. I think they're entitled to that. Those three type of people. Now, the ones that should not be on these benefits, that should not be on these governmental programs. It's able bodies that can work, that got their legs, that got their arms, their whole body is intact. They can move around, they can, get busy with their hands and feet. They can walk 5 miles without getting tired and getting burned out. Those are the type of people that should not be on these benefits, that should not be taking advantage of the system at all. They should not be taking advantage of the system. Now, if they've been on the EBT thing for quite a while and they're struggling to, keep one income, of using one income to pay their whole bills, and they're struggling with just one income, they probably need assistance for the time being. But I think there should be a time limit for them to be on assistance. I think after 6 months to a year, they should be figuring out things on their own without the government assistance. They should be able to provide well for themselves and their families without the assistance of the government, without food stamps. Because we're talking about able bodies that are capable of working, they're capable of doing an 8-hour shift, working overtime. Okay. These are the people that I want to address because they are taking advantage of the system. They're taking advantage of hardworking taxpayers. And I consider myself a taxpayer. And the videos, the compilations of TikToks that I've been seeing from these entitled morons on TikTok, it boggles my mind that these are the type of people that the government is assisting, that the government is helping out. And these are not the type of people that want to work. These are not the type of people that just want to go and get a job and work their butt off to provide. Like, these are lazy folks, the ones that been making it their entire livelihood of living off the system. And these are the type of people that got no problem serving mammon. And if we want to call it straight, their God is the government. They don't believe in the Most High. They don't put their faith and trust in God. They don't. Because if they really put their faith and trust, then they would not be bugging out. They wouldn't be trying to, or, making threats about, I'm going to rob Walmart. I'm going to be stealing from the stores. I'm going to be taking food and looting. You know what I'm saying? If my SNAP card fails and it don't go through, I'm going to just steal it anyway. I'm going to steal all the food. Well, good luck doing that. Good luck avoiding jail time. Good luck avoiding jail time. Because I can guarantee you there's going to be police officers that will guard the stores. They will be there to police these shopping markets to make sure no one is bold enough to steal. But I believe that there are going to be people that will steal, that will go to those lengths to feed their children. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about as well, is if you don't have the necessary the necessary funds to provide for your children, and you've been living off the government for years. Your only saving grace is those food stamps, the social security benefits. Like that's your only saving grace. That's the only way you can feed your child. Personally, I believe you should not be having kids. You should not be having kids if you cannot take care of them yourself. You're not taking care of your children by being on food stamps the whole time. That's not taking care of your children, because what you're doing is you're practicing a vicious cycle of generational poverty through collecting government assistance, living off the government, taking advantage of the system, and that's only going to enforce laziness. That's going to enforce laziness because once you're on it and you feel comfortable about yourself knowing I have the backing of the government, I have this cushion to where I can get by every single month. I can put food on the table. I can buy whatever groceries I want to buy, no problem, and feed my kids, feed myself, buy a whole bunch of junk food, processed food. I don't got to worry about overspending. And the thing is, some of these people on food stamps, they don't have control on how much they're spending. It's like they go overboard with spending, right? It's like you got to, if you're going to be on that and you know you're going to be on that for a short time, but don't have the confidence of of thinking this is going to last forever, because here's the proof right now in 2025, this ain't going to last forever because now they're shutting it off. The government is not funding your food stamps, your EBT cards for the month of November. It's not going to happen. So you best have saved whatever you had left on that EBT card for October. You're better off conserving whatever food you had left, the food that you brought for October, and whatever how much money you got left on that EBT card, you're better off making it count. You're better off making it count. But some people that got their food stamps for October, they went overboard. They were not thinking ahead and not planning ahead. Now, for me, for example, if I was on food stamps, which I'm not, I'm a taxpayer. Okay, I work a job. If I was collecting food stamps, I would be buying canned goods. I'd be stocking up on as much water as possible, stocking up on canned goods, getting prepared if something were to happen to where I cannot access to my food stamps, my EBT card, and the government is not funding my EBT card for this particular month. But at least the month prior, I did the right thing, the smart thing of stocking up on the essentials to keep me going, to keep me afloat. If I was taking care of a family, I would keep them afloat too, you know what I'm saying, by getting the essentials, by stockpiling on water, rice, beans, fruits, vegetables, some meats, you know what I'm saying, tuna fish, all the canned goods, and a lot of water, buying a bunch of junk food. I get it. We get a sweet tooth every now and then. I do as well. Gotta have your chips, gotta have your cookies from time to time. I understand all that, but um you got to also cut down at the same time and learn when to step away from those food choices and eat a little bit more clean, have a cleaner diet. And by observing and watching these TikTok compilations of all these entitled people, of them losing their mind because their SNAP benefits is being turned off by the government, I'm learning that a lot of these people eat very unhealthy. A lot of these people, they consume a lot of junk. They consume a lot of processed foods. Okay, like foods, like processed shit that you should have been grew out of long ago. Like there's some processed foods that I grew up at. I grew out of that. I grew out of eating that crap, that garbage. Now there's still some processed foods that I still may consume, but it's getting less and less because I feel like I'm growing out of certain foods. That it's just a natural thing when as you age, you get a little bit older, you start to eat more mature, like you let go of the crappy processed foods. Now if I'm going through a tough month, Me personally, I would stick with tuna fish, ramen noodles. Like I don't eat ramen noodles very often, but if I ain't got the funds to buy other food choices and I gotta save money for this month, I'm buying me some ramen noodles and I'll live off of that for the whole entire month. Some PB&J sandwiches and I'm good to go. And tuna fish. You know what I'm saying? And a snack here and there. But there comes a time where you gotta learn to control yourself. And these people, they're on TikTok flexing about all the food that they brought, all the food they brought with their EBT, that is funded by us taxpayers. Primarily that's where a lot of this government assistance comes from, us paying taxes. Okay. That is how the government, I guess that's one of the main ways that the government is able to fund the government assistance, these governmental programs, essentially, right? The EBT, food stamps, I think social security benefits, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but for sure it's definitely the food stamps. Okay. And I don't get the whole flexing thing. Like, okay, so what? You brought some chips. So what? You brought some junk food. You brought some chicken. You brought some steak. Okay, anyone can buy that. Anyone can buy all those things that you are bragging about buying. It's not a big deal. But, like I said, like these are the type of people that are entitled. They've enforced a habit of laziness in their life because of them serving mammon, and we're not supposed to serve mammon. They believe in the government more than they believe in God. So they worry about what they're going to eat. They worry about if I'm going to have food for next month, like, that's a normal human concern, right? But being a believer in Christ, you're going to instill more faith in the unknown, the unseen. I should say the unseen is God. God is unseen, but there's a Holy Spirit that we feel. If you're tapped in, you're tuned in, you're going to feel that Holy Spirit from time to time. And if you've been reading his word, especially scriptures that are directly talking about faith, having faith, okay, putting your trust in the Most High, and your heart has been, tuned in and tapped into that word, you should not be worried about a lot of things. You should be confident in what God can, bring to your life, what he can provide you with. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't work, you shall not eat. And I believe everyone should be working, with the exception of the elderly, the disabled, the military veterans that risk their lives to protect and serve the country. They deserve a pass, right? Because they're a different type of people, right? They deserve a pass, but not able bodies. And this whole time of sitting on their ASS, sitting on the couch, collecting benefits, collecting food stamps month to month. And mind you, there's a lot of Americans getting food stamps. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy. Like, that used to be a thing where people were ashamed of receiving food stamps. That was something you were ashamed of back in the day. My mom, she used to be on welfare. When I was born, she had me and my older brother. For the first, I don't know how long she was on welfare. I think it was like a good amount of years that she was on welfare. But the year 2000, that was when she got off of welfare and she went to work. She started working as a deli clerk at a supermarket. And ever since that time, she has stopped collecting welfare. She stopped collecting food stamps. So she got up and went to work. And, I respect my mom for doing that, because if she would have kept on depending on the government for food stamps, for that assistance, I don't think she would have ever gotten off. And I think that would have only encouraged a vicious cycle of laziness. And that would have also followed on me and my older brother. You know what I'm saying? If she had not gone off that, she would have basically said it's okay to use the government, regardless if you're disabled or not. It's okay to use the government. It's okay to take advantage of the government. It's okay to, be on these food stamps. If you need it, you need it. But there's an option to go and work, to work for yours, to make a living. the right way, not sitting on your ass 24/7 expecting a handout and telling the government, here, give me my food stamps month to month, give me my EBT. That's expecting a handout. And then it's going to be hard for you to get off. And I think that if she remained on welfare, I think it would have been a lot harder for her to get off of it because once again, it enforces laziness. It enforces that habit of like, codependence on a government that at the end of the day, they don't care about you because within a snap of a finger, they can cut that off in no time. They can easily cut that off. And then what? What are you going to do then? What is going to be your next game, your next your game plan? What's going to be your next move? What are you going to do then when that gets cut off? And that was your only source of income was that. That was your only source of income was depending on the government. And I want y'all to understand that living off the government is not a good thing. It's not. That's not a fun thing to do because you're gonna get older and the amount of years that you've been on these programs, you're going to not want to work. You're not going to know what it feels like to have worked a 40-hour week and feel proud of yourself knowing that I was able to get the job done. I was able to work for my pay. I was able to work to provide a better life for my family, for my kids. Everything that I got is because I worked. I chose to get up. I chose to make a better living for myself. And now my family is reaping the rewards of that. And I'm setting an example of hard work ethic, being a go-getter. That's the type of example I want to lead by. And I'm glad that my mom did not lead by that example of collecting welfare, just getting a handout from the government. Well, if you're in trouble, just, apply to these food stamps and you're all good to go. But I do nothing of my own merit to ensure there is sustainability in not just myself, but my family too. It goes back to setting an example. If you set an example of being codependent, then you're passing that on to your kids. Then your kids will pass that on to your grandkids, to their kids. So it'll just be a whole big generational mess of codependence, poverty, laziness, entitlement, and nothing is getting done within that family. Nothing is being sustained. Nothing is really being earned. You know what I'm saying? So I figured I'd come on here and make this video to address this issue going on right now, this SNAP benefit crisis, because right now it's going to be no SNAP November for a lot of people. And I feel bad for the children that have to suffer for the irresponsibility of their parents because they didn't do the right thing when they were collecting these food stamps and government assistance. A lot of these single mothers, they went out and got their hair done, their nails did, their feet done. They prioritize all the aesthetics. They prioritize their materialistic desires over the health and their child's needs, right? Your child's needs are more important. Feeding your babies is more important than you getting your nails done, than you getting a new wig, right? You buying some designer, like that can wait. The problem I have with a lot of these able bodies collecting assistance, getting assistance from the government is the fact they're trying to live as if they're a millionaire, as if they really have it, when in reality, they don't have anything. In reality, they don't have money of their own. You see what I'm saying? So really, these people are faking the funk all the way through, trying to convince other people that they got it, they got it good like that when they don't. They're putting on a facade. They're wearing a mask. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses. So at the end of the day, man, it's like there's 41 million, I think 41 to 42 million Americans that get food stamps every month. And that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. If you get your food stamps, what's the point of you bragging about it? What's the point of you flexing about it on the internet? What's the reasoning behind that? Like, I don't get it. I don't care that you have two things of Oreo cookies. I don't care if you have all these, different packs of sodas and cases of sodas. That doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, anyone can buy those groceries. Anyone can buy all that processed stuff. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't add up. It really doesn't. For me, it's better to earn it the right way. I don't know. I'm probably just wired differently. And I think it's the American way to have work ethic, to earn a dollar by showing up to work, regardless of what you do. Just being a go getter, putting your head down, grinding, whether you do a business, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work a 9 to 5 or you do a skilled trade, whatever how you get it, as long as it's legal, right? You're working towards something. You're not asking for a handout. You're not expecting anything from anybody. You're not begging nobody for help. You're getting it on your own, okay? And that's the best way to do it, is on your own. It's not a pride thing. It's I have to eat, I have to live, I have to work. If I don't work, nothing's happening. Me living, me eating will cease to exist if I don't work. If I don't put my work clothes on, if I don't, clock in, if I don't become a go-getter, if I don't apply myself, then nothing will happen. No doors of opportunity will come my way. Okay. And that's just a fact. That's just a fact. So I want to make it clear that in this video, I'm not going after the military veterans. I'm not going after the elderly or disabled. They have a right to collect benefits, to get food stamps, because they can't work. They can't physically stay active in the workforce. They can't do anything. So they're sedated to, being in a wheelchair or having to use crutches to get by. Um, they have some type of condition where they can't work, they can't perform. So I think those type of people deserve a pass, and they're excluded from this conversation. It's the able bodies that want to be lazy, that want to live off of taxpayers like myself and you probably watching this video, and many others. And you got some, and what really pisses me off is that you got some grown men on food stamps, and they're an able body. Nothing is wrong with them. They ain't got no condition. They're able to speak well, they look healthy, but they're expecting a handout from the government, right? They serve mammon, the mammon god. The mammon god is what gives them the benefits to get by for a month. The mammon god is what brings them their food for the month, that fills up their EBT card, and that's who they put their faith and trust in. So what's happening right now is proof that there's a lot of Americans, a lot of people that don't believe in God. The able bodies that have been struggling. But see, they can turn that around if they just learn to work, if they just learn to apply themselves and not take handouts from anyone. But some people, unfortunately, are just wired to take handouts and don't want to work for it on their own. Some people don't believe in working a job to humble themselves and work for somebody. Because at the end of the day, you have to start off somewhere. Eventually, you're going to get to the place you want to be, but you have to learn how to work together with other people, work under a boss before you become a boss. You got to learn how this job does things, how this company operates. Learn the ins and the outs of this company. You know what I'm saying? No one ever starts off being a boss. No one ever starts off, being this great entrepreneur or being a salesman or just being at the top of their profession. Like, no one starts off at the top. You got to start from the bottom and work your way up to the top. You got to work your way up in increments. You got to pay your dues. I'm a big believer in paying your dues. You know what I'm saying? I start off making around 7.99 an hour working at a college, right? My first job was a cashier for a few weeks at a shopping market. I was only making about $7 at that time. That was like the minimum wage, $7. And I started working my way up into different jobs, different employers, different companies, and making more money. I never had that mindset of somebody owes me something. Somebody owes me this. I never had that mindset of codependence. I've always been a go-getter. I've always wanted to work for it myself. And that's just how I'm wired. I'm not wired to receive a handout. I think if my mom was on welfare for a long time, going past the year 2000, I think I would have exhibit that same pattern. I think I would have definitely been on food stamps myself, but I'm glad that that was not the case. I'm glad I had a mom that was a hard worker, willing to grind, willing to get it the right way and not be codependent on the system because the government's going to let you down. The system going to cut your benefits off at some point or reduce it. You know what I'm saying? And this time right now is proof they are willing to shut it off. Not permanently, but for the time being. But it's interesting to see how people are reacting to this government shutdown. And for the ones that say they're going to go out to these stores and shopping markets and loot and steal and rob, that's exactly what the government wants y'all to do. Y'all do that, y'all going to jail. Y'all going to jail if y'all want to do that. Y'all can try it, but it's like, is it worth it? Is it really, really worth it to go out to these stores and loot, knowing the consequences? Y'all got to think about the consequences, right? And y'all got to think about the decisions y'all made the month prior with those food stamps. Did y'all use those food stamps correctly? Did you have enough to sustain if you knew this was happening, right? Because I'm pretty sure the government shutdown officially began October 1st, if I'm not mistaken. So by October 1st, once you got your EBT funded, whatever how much was on there for that month of October, you should have thought to yourself, listen, I need to make sure I got enough for October and just enough for November to get through November, right? And make sure I stock up on all the essentials, right? To keep me going, to keep my family going, to keep us good for those 2 months, especially November, because November is going to be tough. November is going to be a hard month. This government is shutting down my benefits, so I have to learn to maintain. I got to learn to work with what I got, okay, and not go overboard with spending all these funds and being out of control and just be smart with how you're using these benefits, right? If you're on them. So, I'm not personally attacking anyone that's on these food stamps, right? There are people that work a job, they still have to rely on food stamps to get them by. So you got that as well. But once again, you got able bodies that got no problem taking advantage of the government and staying on these EBT cards for a long time. They got no problem staying on these government programs probably their entire life, and that's sad. That's very, very sad because you can do better. You know that you can apply yourself. You can't make excuses and say, I don't want to work a job. I don't want to work for nobody. Like, who are you? Like, who do you think you are that you can't work for somebody, or you think you're too good to flip burgers? Like, you think you're too good to wait on a customer, to have customer service? Like, you think you're too good to stock shelves? Like, who do you think you are? And that's that pride, man. That's that ego, that pride that just prevents you from working a job. Like I said, you got to start somewhere and build yourself up incrementally. That's how you're supposed to do it. Pay your dues. You know what I'm saying? So November is going to be one hell of a month. It's going to be pretty crazy, hectic. Think I think a lot of people that are taxpayers that are, you know, they work a job, they make their own money, they provide for themselves and their family. I think um, Be very careful of what's going to happen around November and be cautious. Don't be in fear, right? Don't be in fear, but be cautious, right? Be alert because it's going to be pretty crazy in the month of November, right? Because if people are seriously considering looting these stores, and there's been video proof of people saying, I'm gonna loot these stores, I'm gonna rob, and I don't care, ain't nobody gonna stop me. Like those people are just reckless. Like those people are just completely foolish and they're not using their head. They're just not. So they want to go to jail, they want to face the consequences. That's on them, but be careful of those type of people that are ready to crash out, right? That are ready to just risk it all for some food. Okay. Once again, we live in a country, America, the most overfed country in the world. And people are ready to risk it all, risk their freedom for some food. Like, think about that, man. Think about that for a second. Like, we're the most overfed country, and you got people that are ready to go to jail, ready to be put in handcuffs, over some hamburgers, over some ground beef and steak and junk food and processed food. It don't make any sense, man. I think people just have to use their brain and get it together. You know what I'm saying? Get it together. It's not smart to bring children in this world if you yourself alone cannot provide a better life for them. Like man, it should be against the law to bring children into a system that in a system that you depend on for assistance. You can't work on your own. You can't make money on your own accord to provide for your kid, but you're looking for the government to do your job. I don't think that's a good situation to bring a child into. It's not. It's not a favorable circumstance to bring your child into because you're setting the example that it's okay to be codependent on a government for the rest of your life. If I'm getting these free benefits, food stamps every month, why do I have to work? That's the mindset of a lot of Americans. Why do I have to work if I'm getting this for free every month? There's no sense of me working. There's no sense of me applying myself because the government is giving me everything that I need to get by. So, unfortunately, that's the mindset of a lot of Americans, even some grown ass men. And that's even sadder that you got grown men, able bodies, and they're codependent on the system to fund their lifestyle, to feed them every month. I feel better about myself knowing that I work for my own. I work to provide for myself. And, my mom, I help her out as well. And I have a roommate. We all help each other out pretty much, right? And I just couldn't imagine my life of me being codependent on the government. Like, nah, I'd rather go through the struggle for whatever how long I got to go through it. I'd rather get it how I usually get it how I get it the right way. And if I have to struggle for a few months, so be it. So be it. I will struggle for a few months, but I'm not depending on no government to fund my lifestyle. Not happening. Not happening, man. So I think it would be hypocritical for me to serve mammon and call myself a warrior for Christ, be a believer in Christ, but I serve mammon. No, that just cannot work. That cannot work for me, man. I will look like a serious hypocrite if that were the case. So yeah, be mindful of people that are looking to crash out around you. Protect yourself if you need to. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, man, it's no snap November, and a lot of people are gonna be looking to be snapping and causing a ruckus, But all these people that are on TikTok, crashing out and letting everyone know, the whole world, what they're about to do. November 1st, they're just exposing themselves and they're showing who they really are. They're showing who they really are without food stamps, their true character, their true nature. And it's very unfortunate, man. So, with that being said, let me know what y'all think about this message, this video. I felt that I needed to address this and give my take on it. Thank y'all for watching. This is Warrior for Christ, and I'm out, and God bless.